right. So we have some people logging in. So let's go ahead and get started. And as people join us, we will be able to engage them. So I have been very excited about having this conversation with you all. This is actually a conversation that the three of us have all the time. And I mean, we really go deep. We really go deep. Normally it's me and Kathleryn because Christin always falls asleep on us. But when she's engaged, then we have a great conversation. And so we were just talking after, well, it was before Kristen went to sleep the other night. We had a great conversation and we were just talking about the depth of discussion that we were having. And I was just sharing with them that, I think at this stage in my life, it's been a challenge as God has separated me from different relationships and friendships and different things, to have a challenge to have a place where I can just unload, or I can just talk, or I could just talk about things that I'm thinking and things that are on my mind and heart. And so being able to have you two young ladies to do that with, and I do have others, but I'm just talking specifically about you all because that's how this kind of came about, has truly, truly been a blessing for me. So I thank you all. Thank you.
Oh, well, we love you, Dewan, and we always enjoy our conversations with you. They're so much fun, and they're filled with so much meaning for Kristen and I. Even when Kristen and I are together, and we talk about you in a good way. Let me just say that. And we just talk about just how much we appreciate you being in our life and the friendship that we have, the three of us now have made. So when you asked us to do this, we were excited. So we're glad to be here with you tonight.
Oh, thank
And
you.
I echo what Kathleryn said. You've let everybody kind of know the secret that our conversations are rather late at night and
Yeah, they are.
sometimes tired, but I really enjoy after a full day of just processing work and life and everything. I really appreciate being able to decompress with you ladies late at night and just kind of talk about everything. So I'm there the most of the conversations.
You are.
We
And
got you. We
I
got you.
will say last night, Kathleen, I think we got off almost 1 o'clock. Was it
Yes.
almost 1 a.m.?
Yes.
So it is late, so I give you that. But thank you all. Thank you for those words. That mean a lot to me. So let's go ahead and just start talking about what we came on here to do. One reason I wanted to have this conversation was because of what I just said about you all. But the other thing is, as many people know, I am writing a book. You have probably been hearing about this book for many years. This book has been a challenge for me. Number one, I did not want to write this book. It started off with another vision, and my vision was coming together, and then all of a sudden it just came to a halt. And no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't move forward. It was like the words wouldn't come for the other project that I was working on. And God said, "You have to do a book." And I was like, "Lord, I don't have that much to talk about. Like, I have a story, but I don't have a story that people want to hear." And I just really realized during that time, as I started reflecting on just my life and the things that I've gone through, the things that I've seen and experienced, that everyone has a story, and it's just how you view it. And so I started working on the book. My book is called My Story, My Life. No, My Life, My Stories, Our Lessons. And the entire purpose of it is to just share my very, very transparent. And that's probably why it's so hard for me to get it out, because I am very honest and transparent and open on in this book. And so I really, when I had to sit back and reflect, felt like maybe it's been so difficult for me to complete it for many reasons. But the biggest thing may be because I know that I'm opening myself up to judgment. I'm opening myself up to criticism in some ways. I'm opening myself up to many things, which is okay because I've been under that scrutiny as a PK for years and all my life. But it's different when you're only really focusing on your mistakes and your failures and that kind of thing in the book, even though I'm sharing lessons. So it is my prayer and my hope that through my book, through my writings, through my transparency, that people are able to find their lessons for themselves intertwined in the pages of mine. And so I'm not going to really talk about that much more tonight. That's the gist of it. But talking about My Story Mondays. I want to do this thing where on Mondays I have a conversation. Now, it will not be a Facebook Live like this every time. Sometimes it might just be a 60 to 2 minute or so video. But tonight, this is how I want to kick it off. I didn't think it was a better way to do it. So, the one thing we have been talking about, and when we first talked about this conversation, we have been having some wonderful, interesting conversations when it comes to this quarantine and just everything that's going on in our world. These are unprecedented times that none of us ever anticipated. If you're anything like me, when I first came into 2020, I mean, I was leaving 2019 like, oh, 2020 vision. I saw clearly. If you look at my hashtags on Instagram, I could see clearly, focus, all this stuff. And then it was like, in March. So I have been quarantined since March the 16th. I can probably count on my hands the number of times that I have been out in the public, and we'll talk about all of that as we continue this conversation. But when was the date that you all, or do you have a date that you all kind of quarantined as much as possible where you limited your access to the outside world?
For me, it was really probably around March the 19th, around mid-March. And for, you know, as everyone knows, I serve as the Hamilton County Commissioner for District 5. Go District 5, so proud. And so it was right after Hamilton County got the first report of our first case. And I was actually getting prepared for church. It was on a Sunday, was getting ready for church. And I got a phone call from a friend, and they called and said, "Commissioner, did you hear?" And I'm like, "Hear what?" And they were talking about the case. And I was like, "Yeah, that doesn't have, anything to deal with me." And then we just got to talking about, all the meetings we go to, and it just got my mind to thinking about everything that I do in terms of the commission and where I go and the people that I interface with. And I didn't panic, but I certainly was like, okay, maybe I need to be proactive and call my doctor. And I actually started coughing on that Saturday. And, seasonal allergies, I always have them. So I was like, well, I'm going to call my doctor on that Monday. I actually thought my doctor was just going to tell me, "Kathleryn, you're fine. You suffer with seasonal allergies. You're okay." Well, I called my doctor and she said, "Go get tested." And I was like, huh? So I actually got tested very early on when the virus came out, when the pandemic started. So I was actually quarantined and told to quarantine and self-isolate at home. So I was pretty much stuck at home early on. And so even after I got tested and my test came back negative, it was hard for me to get back out, to be honest. After you're told to stay home and it's lifted, it's like, don't want to go back out. So I've been pretty much in.
And I had a very different experience initially. As many people know, I work for the Area Agency on Aging and Disability, and we're charged to really support older adults with services and assistance in their home. And so when this first hit, they were the ones that we were really advising to stay in. And so we had to quickly get together and figure out, how are we going to support them? How are we going to make sure they have what they need? They have food, they have supplies, just anything that they need. And so I spent a lot of time very early on, still in my office, still delivering meals, still seeing people, doing whatever I could to serve the older adults. And it was about early April when things started progressing. We had to say, hold up, we've got to protect ourselves too, and we've got to be safe, or we're not really going to be doing good to the people we're trying to serve and help. And so it was a little bit later for me when we slowed down and started kind of staying in and seeing how could we still help the older adults, but how could we help them differently?
Yeah, and it's just been a challenge all the way around. And let me just say this, I was so excited about getting started. I did no introductions. So I hope you all looked at the flyer prior to this so you know who was speaking, but let me go ahead and do it. This is Kathleryn Jeter. She has already said that, you know, she is the Hamilton County Commissioner for Hamilton County District 5. And she's a mom, she's a mentor, she's a volunteer, she's everything, a health advocate. And then we have Christin McWhorter, and she's the one in the blue shirt, and she is everything too. She is a mentor, a mom, she is a community resource leader. So she is the one, if you ever, well, I don't know how to change now, but she's the one, if you ever wanted to know what was going on in the community, you go to her page and she's going to have a whole listing every week. I never paid attention. I never tried to even find out what was going on because I could just go to her page and find out where I could go eat for free that weekend, who was having a concert, who was all that. So I don't know how that's going to really change now that things are changing. So maybe you could tell us about quarantine events or something.
And she's the best friend. She's the best friend ever. So I had to add that too.
She is one of those people like, and okay, so this is part of our conversation that we had the other night. So, you know, when you have friendships, everyone serves kind of like a different purpose in your life. So we were talking about, like, I was telling them about the purpose that you all serve in my life. I said, Kathleryn is one of those people, if I want to do something, I'm gonna call her. She'll be like, oh yes, let's do it. And we're just gonna start talking and doing it, whatever. Christin is the kind, she's like, yeah, let's do it. But how are we gonna do this? Okay, let's bring it down, guys. Like, she makes us make sense because I think both of us are very creative and we're both visionaries and we just see something and we want to go for it. Now, I'm a planner too, but Chris is a different level planner. Yeah. So if it's ever anything that I ever want to do, like tonight, she's the co-host. So if anything happens with this live, let us put our disclaimer right here. We have checked this live for the last 2 days. So if it goes out, it is not our fault. We have done our due diligence. But if it does go out, I'm going to tell you this now, then we will post the link for Zoom for you to just join us on the Zoom call in the Facebook, on my Facebook. So just go check that if anything happens. So I'm going back to the conversation. Let me ask you this. What has been the most difficult part of quarantine for you? Or has there been anything that's been like super, super difficult?
It really, for me, it really hasn't, for the most part, been difficult. I think if anything, you know, I have 2 boys, my oldest, Jack, and my youngest, Austin. So for me, with anything in my life is always making sure that they are well taken care of. And most people in my life know with Jack, my oldest son, he has a disability. And so it was early on just making sure that he understood what COVID-19 meant in terms of, you know, going out in the public and, you know, being safe and things like that. So that was very challenging. And Jack is the type of person that he's so caring and so thoughtful for everybody else, and especially his family and especially me. And so he was very, when I thought, you know, was sick and had to get tested, he was so concerning for me and everything. So it's been mainly, if anything, just making sure that Jack and Austin is taken care of. And Austin is still there at MTSU at his apartment. So, you know, not being a overpowering mother and making sure he's 19 and, you know, making sure that he's okay, but yet giving him his space and letting him try to figure this out as he tells me, Mom, I got this. But that's probably been the most challenging thing for me.
And for me, as you mentioned, I'm very community minded. I'm very social. I'm a very social person. So I like being around people. I often say that I like experiences over things. So when I spend my money, I'm spending it on experiences rather than things. So I just miss being out around people and hugging people and touching people. It's very uncomfortable to be in the store and see someone and I just want to give them a hug, or just even walk close to someone and I'm like, oh, am I too close? Am I in their personal space? And feeling bad for stepping back. And so it's just been very challenging to not be around people and not show love physically to people.
That's a very good point. So for me, and then I'm going to go back to that point. For me, I can't say that the quarantine has really, and let me be very careful when I say this, it hasn't affected me personally when it comes to like me wanting to get out, because I'm a homebody anyway. So I don't have an issue, but it is a difference, however, when you don't have a choice, kind of, per se, when, even if you wanted to go out, it's safer to stay at home. And so for me, I would say on that part, the older I get, the more of an introvert I'm becoming. But that hasn't been the hardest part. The hardest part for me, I feel, is seeing the struggle of so many other people right now. For my day-to-day, I am a life coach, I'm a business coach, and I also work with a program organization called Lunch, and we help minorities, women-owned, and the underserved populations to start businesses and to grow them. And so I will say, for me, just being my own clients, being in that environment, it has been so difficult to be able to just, have these conversations and see how these businesses that people have worked their entire lives for, are really being challenged now on whether I should keep fighting or just close up the doors, or how does that look from, them going forward. And just having a business does not mean that if I close the doors that I just don't have a business. It means for a lot of people that I can't feed my family. It means that I can't pay my bills. I might lose my car. I may lose my house. And so when you start looking at the challenges that so many other people are facing, I think that has been the most difficult part for me. And not knowing exactly, outside of providing the resources, trying to help as much as I can. I mean, I can't write $1 million check, so for me, that's normally my answer. If I can help you, if your issue is going to be financial and I can help, that's what I'm going to do. But being in a position where there's nothing you can do or say except offer your assistance, pray, those kind of things, that has been the most challenging thing for me. You all brought up something that I want to touch on. You all are in a unique position, but in a familiar position for many people. This was the first year that both of you had children who went to college. So I already went through that process with you all to get them there. But then for their school year to not even end, but to come to a halt the way that it did, how was that and what did that look like for you all and them?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I know. My daughter, of course, like you said, was a freshman in college at the beginning of 2019, and she struggled. She really struggled trying to find her place, find friends, be very social for her first semester in college. So it was just very difficult. And I think if it had happened in 2019, she might have ran home. But by 2020 in the spring, she was really finding her place. She was really starting to get used to it, be more independent, and find friends and find her social network at college. And March happened and she was sent home. They basically were kicked out of the dorms. They had to leave. And that was hard for her. That was hard for her to adjust to that. It was hard for me. I just adjusted to her being gone. I'm like, she's good, she's happy, great. We're having a great relationship now. And so it was hard. I wasn't expecting her to come back. And we don't want to talk about the grocery bill, but anyway, it was
you stay cooking. You're always cooking.
Yeah, so it was really big adjustment, but I'm proud of how she's handled it. Just like us, she's watching the news, she's looking at the information that's being said, she's processing it with her and her friends and her group, her circle. So I'm really proud of the way she thought about this, the way she's careful to take her own health into consideration and finish school. And so she's finished and ready for sophomore year, and she wants to go back. So I'm proud of her.
That's good. I've really been challenged with, and it has just broken my heart. Early on in this, it didn't hit me till like maybe a couple weeks in. I started really thinking about seniors, high school seniors, even college seniors, but more so high school seniors, because I have a cousin, a younger cousin. This was her senior year. And of course, I worked with Stop and Madness with tons of youth. I worked with youth in the church. So to be able to see their year just come to a halt like that. I mean, these are the times when you're born, you live to, I guess, reach whatever age. But then you're looking to reach 16 so you can drive. Then you're looking to reach 18 so you can leave the house. Then you're looking to reach 21. But that 18, 17, 18, when you can go to the prom, you can get your life, all that stuff. And then you miss your senior prom, you miss your high school graduation. And for a lot of students, they're first generation graduates.
Yeah.
So you worked your entire life to be able to walk across that stage and to be able to experience that. And then it's just taken away by no fault of your own. And so I really, that it just breaks my heart. And I wish it was just something I could do. I've been thinking about, like, what could I do? Could I do like a citywide graduation or something? I'm just not able. But I'm hoping that maybe, depending on how things go, that maybe the community can come together and maybe figure out something. If not, they still have their whole life to live. Like, it's so many other milestones that they will be able to accomplish and achieve. But this is just a special time. And so this weekend, it was a lot of drive-bys and for graduations. And so I was happy to see that. And I attended one of them. And then I know some other people that had one. But the one that I attended, it just did something for me to see the excitement that child had, well, young adult had, being able to do that. Because I'm thinking I would be so sad. And, but to see they were still excited and being honored. But then I, on the other end, think about the ones who aren't able to do that. Their parents and their families are in positions where they can't even think about doing a graduation party, drive-by, whatever. And so that's kind of my thoughts on that. Let me ask you this. So okay, it's going to be kind of a two-part question. I'm going to ask this first. So at the beginning of quarantine, I literally had all of these things. Well, first of all, let me say, to our audience, thank you all for joining. For those who have come on since we got started, I want you all to engage with us in the chat. I'm asking these questions to them, but I'm also asking them to you. So if you have something that has been very challenging for you during this time, drop it in the chat. It's a little delayed, so if we answer a little late, then that's the reason. But drop it in the chat. We want to engage you. We have these conversations all the time, so we want to come on live to engage other people. So join us in this conversation. Okay, so I was getting ready to ask y'all a question. I'll come back. No, I'll go back to this question because I want to address this, and it's going to lead into this. So during this time, what is it that you decided, like when you heard about quarantine, oh, I'm getting ready to do this, I'm getting ready to do that? Because I know what mine is, but I want to hear yours first. The things that you thought or planned to accomplish by this time, has it been done? Have you completed it? And if not, what do you feel like prevented you from doing it?
So for me, when the quarantine hit, I had a list, and I shared this with you the other night. I had this whole list of projects, both personal and professionally. And I thought, oh, great. This is going to be a great opportunity because I'm always on the go with the commission and then the things that I do with church and other stuff that I'm involved with. And I said, this is going to be a great opportunity for me to catch up with reading my books and all these other projects. And so I actually wrote them down and had them on my desk so I could see them every day. And matter of fact, I see the list right now. And I have not completed not one. But honestly, I'm not upset about it. I think, when I look at when the quarantine first started to what now we're on May 18th, I think what God is telling me is that, for me, I needed time to just kind of pause. I needed, we talked about this the other night, that I set for myself every year what I call intentions. And one of my intentions was for 2020 was to find peace, or to have more peace in my life. And what that meant was to pause more and to seek God more. And so I really have been doing that. And it starts in the morning time, going and sitting on my porch. I'm planting flowers, folks. I don't ever plant flowers. I've never plant flowers. I'm cooking. So everybody on Facebook, right?
Are you actually doing the cooking?
Cooking.
You know how you get down when it comes to you're cooking.
It's not every day, but I'm cooking. So I'm doing things that I never would have done. So yet it's not things on the list, but I am doing things that is bringing me peace and it's bringing me joy. So for that, I am extremely happy. So, yeah.
So do you feel like this is making you a little more flexible, or do you feel like you were flexible anyway?
Oh no, this is making me much more flexible, more relaxed, and I definitely feel more at peace. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
What about you, Christin?
Yeah, so some of the same feelings I have as Kathleryn has. This time of pause has just been really refreshing for me. I am a go, go, go. Everybody pretty much knows that. I am always on the go. And even though I'm still doing things, like I've been volunteering to help serve food at my church. And even though I'm doing kind of those, and I'm working, even though I'm doing those things, I'm still at a more slower pace than I was previously. So I'm pausing. So I really, really am finding a level of peace and joy with that. But one of the things on my list, because I do go all the time, at the top of my list was I was going to clean my house. Bottom, every closet, every cabinet, every corner was going to be clean. It was going to be like spring clean. Haven't done a thing. So it's just one of those things like, yes, I have no excuse. I have all this time, but I've been doing things that I enjoy. So I've been cooking more and I've been talking with my daughter more. And like I said, I've been out serving meals and giving out food. So I've been doing things that are important. I've just been spending time with me, which is rare for me. So I haven't accomplished what was on that list, but again, is it really that important? I'm not having visitors to my house anyway.
Right. And it might keep you from bringing them in when you get tired of quarantine.
Right.
Dawn, I think this is your aunt on Facebook. I think she says, which I like, it's a time for, Denise says, she says it's a time for self-reflection. And I think that's truly what it is. And I think for a lot of people, I think from what I have seen on my Facebook friends, it's been a time for
self-reflection. Absolutely.
I agree. That's very good. And I'm glad she actually said that. So if I was to answer that question, mine will be a little different from you all, because I felt like I hadn't had time to pause. Like I have been busier since the quarantine than I was prior to the quarantine. And I think a lot of that has to do with, because I work with small businesses, I work with nonprofits, and this is such a trying time for them that my entire day is just filled with that. You know, the first several weeks, it was filled with trying to help people find resources for funding just to stay open or to feed their families, the PPP, the SBA, the different community funding sources. I mean, it was just one thing after the next. And not only have I been trying to help businesses find funding, but I've spent probably more time, well, probably not more time, but close to it, helping people find housing, helping people find things that you already feel like are, things that you would hope that people just don't have to. And I really feel like with this quarantine, with the pandemic period, it's not necessarily causing things, it's exposing things. It's exposing issues that were already a problem. It's just worsening them or shedding light on them. And so for me, I haven't really had that opportunity to pause, and I'm okay with that, because long as I'm doing my best and I'm being productive, then I'm okay with that. However, things are starting to kind of slow down just a tad bit. And now my business is picking up more so with people wanting to start businesses rather than trying to save them. So it's kind of taking a different dynamic, but it is starting to slow down a little bit where I can kind of woosah, say la. And I had my list. Like by today, my entire house, my drawers, just like you said, would be clean, everything. And I just love stuff. I love stuff. And so for the last couple of years, I've been trying to be a minimalist. But I realized probably after the second day, that will never happen. So I just have to organize and get more totes to be able to organize it and label. Y'all know me and my totes and my labels.
Yes, we do.
I love just organizing things. So anyway, that has been a challenge, and I'm determined that the next couple weeks, because I'm still in quarantine, I will make sure that that happens. Share in the chat, you all, like what is something that you all thought that you would get done before the end of quarantine. And like I said, I'm still quarantining, and just like some of them, you might be still quarantining too. And so for me, it's not over. So it's still time for me. But what have you learned about, okay, so for me, I'm quarantining with my parents. And sometimes they're the best roommates. I know I'm a great roommate. My mama and daddy in here? Am I a great roommate, y'all? My mama gonna say, yeah. My daddy, he might be a different story. But I've been quarantining with them, and it's been good. It's been good. I stay out their way, they stay out of mine. We have, in the last couple of weeks, been trying to be intentional about spending more time with each other. Actually, my dad, 2 weeks in a row, sent a text to me and my mom and I, and asked us on a date. And he said we had to be on time. The first day, we were 20 minutes late trying to make him a salad. And he said, I didn't ask for a salad. I asked y'all to be on time. So being able to really understand people and communicate, that's what we're learning in this time. And so we're working on our communication with each other. And so what are the things that you have learned? Because I really feel like it's a shame if you go through this entire process, or disheartening, I should say, if you don't learn anything new about yourself, your family, or the world. Like, what are you all learning about the people that you thought you knew? Or do you really know them well? And it just confirms some things.
Chris, you start.
Crickets over there on that end. Okay. Now, I've really learned about, at least in my house, I have my 2 kids, or many adults with me. And I've just learned that they are really caring and compassionate and thoughtful people. I mean, like I said, we go and we're so busy, but just to hear them engage in conversations about what's going on, even like I said, at their young age and their perspective, and listening to them, I mean, they give me things to think about. They're like, well, have they considered this? And what are they saying about this? And so just really hearing them and watch them, kind of navigate this thing that none of us have been through before. I mean, none of us have experienced anything to this magnitude. Right. So, yeah. And so just watching them navigate that has been rewarding to see that they've been that way. And then I've had my other family and friends check in on me. And I think that's one of the lessons out of this. And I know we'll talk about lessons later, but it's just that we need to take the time to check in on each other.
Yeah.
Whether to see that we're okay, whether it's from a pandemic or whether it's just from life. Mm-hmm. Just checking in on each other and making sure that we're okay.
Yeah. That's good.
So one of the things that's very interesting, because as I stated, Austin is still away living in Murfreesboro, the MTSU. And so Jack, so I'm usually, I get up in the morning, I leave and I'm gone and he's here. And so one of the things that I have seen is Jack stays in his room. He only comes out when it's time to eat. He comes out in the morning. He says, "Mama, the food ready." He comes out at lunchtime. He comes out. And I've learned all of his music. I learned he loves to sing. He sings all the songs. And we've been quarantined with the infamous King this whole time, now 3-year-old. And I know that prayer does work. So those are the things that I've learned.
It took King to show you that, huh?
Key, I know prayer works. I've been calling on them. So yeah, so I think those are the things that have stood out to most is that my babies are 26 and 19, and so being quarantined with a 3-year-old, yeah, it's been really interesting.
That's good. And I understand that, like I said, the Micah, my nephew, 2-year-old nephew, and Deanna quarantined with us this weekend, and that was interesting. And I enjoyed them, and I just talk about how much I miss them. And I was upstairs doing my own thing, and my mom was like, "I thought you missed them." I said, "I do." I said, "I didn't ask them to come and stay." I said, "I missed them." But we really enjoyed it. I did spend some time with them. And I really enjoyed them, but yeah, it's a lot. So let's go to some of the comments in the chat. I see where the Charlotte said she thought she would work out every day.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't we all?
Didn't we all?
And I really need to start moving now. I just told my mama yesterday, not that I'm a fighter or anything like that, but I told my mom if I got in a fight, I'd probably get wore out right now. I just feel so limp, like I'm losing my muscle mass or something. I just said I need to move more, and I really do. I need to start taking walks. I need to exercise. I need to do something because I don't snack a whole lot, but I can tell the difference in my body. And when I do eat, it's probably not the best. I've been trying to do a little better, so I would agree. Have you all been working out and moving? You haven't been working out?
Yes, well, not the whole.
Yesterday.
I just started back. Yeah.
Okay. Not the entire time, but this past 2 weeks, my daughter and I have started walking. And so we started getting out and moving. It's been good to get fresh air and just walk. So
that's good.
Just this last 2 weeks.
Well, I've been wanting to go walking more. I can walk all day now. All that other stuff I'm not interested in, but I'll do it if I have to. But I've been wanting to walk. So I asked my mom, I call her the Cookie Monster, but I asked her to walk with me, and she said, "Yeah, let's walk." But every time I want to walk, she want to make candles or something, or she has an excuse. And then my dad, he'll say yes, but then by the time I wake up in the morning, he's already gone his walk and he's back. So I'm like, so I really want to start walking, and I'm going to be very intentional about that. Let's see. Hey, Judy. I see Judy in the comments.
Oh, this is a good one. This is Nikki's. This is Christin's sister. She posted, have you had friends or family that have struggled with loneliness or depression? How do you help loved ones combat that?
That's an excellent question.
That is an excellent question.
And actually, one of the things I wanted to talk about was self-care. And I feel like that kind of goes into the same kind of discussion. Would any of you like to kind of discuss that, or?
I think, I would say yes. I think to that question in terms of have I know of friends or family that are struggling with the sense of loneliness and depression. I would say yes to that. And not only just friends and families, I think there's everyone. When you look, when you turn on the news and you look at nationally the state of our country and worldwide in terms of what this pandemic has done. I mean, ultimately, every person was going about their typical everyday life, and then there was just what stopped, right? And just what you just said a few minutes ago, Dewan, this pandemic has exposed so many challenges and disparities and so many other things that already existed. So when you add another huge thing as COVID-19 on top of some other huge things, it's heavy. And so I think about the other people that are out here living. One of the things that I know that I've been hearing a lot just on the commission side that I've been thinking about and praying about is domestic violence, in addition to loneliness and depression, right? Is how do we help individuals that when this pandemic hit to deal with domestic violence issues? That's something that a lot of us don't think about. But when you, again, add on a pandemic and then you're told to quarantine and stay at home, but you're in that type of situation, then what? So in terms of, how do you help, first I'm gonna say we pray. I mean, I'm certainly a believer that prayer does work and that prayer does change things. But then secondly, Kristen, you said it perfectly, is that sense of calling, right? I mean, that's one of the, I think the inexpensive resources every person has in their resource belt is the sense of we can pick up that phone and call somebody. You'll be amazed as to what you can do when you reach out and you connect with somebody and say, you know what, I see you, I hear you, I love you, I'm here. Let me just listen. What's going on? And then the third thing would just be is connecting those resources to that individual that does exist in the community, if they choose to wish to be connected to those resources.
That's good information. And I definitely would say it's a lot. I saw something the other day and I'm gonna see if I can remember where I saw it. And if not, I might just get some more information and post it and maybe in the chat or something. But there are so many hotlines and there are so many resources. Now, calling the hotline is not like having someone there to console you and talk to you and be with you. But I mean, you have to kind of, I guess, do what you have access to at this point. And so take advantage of those resources. There are lots of things. If you aren't sure on what to do, you can always call 211. There is a website called Chattanooga.is. There is one called, it's the dashboard. It was a bunch of us, community resources, community leaders that work together to do a dashboard, and it is chabusiness.org. I think that's it. And I'll put after this, I'll put them in the chat. But it's chabusiness.org. And then is one called findhelp.org. And you can just put in your zip code. You can put in the issues you're having. You can filter on some of these websites and find the help and assistance you need. And I mean, there's so much help when it comes to light bills, when it comes to just mental health, when it comes to just all sorts of things. So really taking advantage of those resources in our community are key. As well, and connecting to some churches. I mean, we're all women of faith. So if you're on here, then you probably know me, which you know that I'm always going to speak Jesus. I'm always going to talk about, just my faith. And so really connecting to a church, even if you don't have a church, everyone is streaming right now. Find a church that you can connect to. Find a church where you can kind of just interact with people online when they're having services. And then after this is over, connect with them in real life. This isn't just for quarantine. This may be an opportunity that God's giving you to do your church hunting, to find the church that you can connect to before you waste a bunch of gas going from church to church. But I'm also going to say church is totally different in person than it is online. So don't get accustomed to just online streaming. When things open up and are safe, then find a church that you can connect to and get engaged with.
And to build on that just quickly, I want to encourage those of us who are believers to reach out to people and share this information with them. Sometimes it's hard for people to reach out and ask for help, but if you're checking in on people, if you're inquiring to see how they are, you can give them these information about these resources, let them know about churches they can connect to. Miss Jackie Fluellen, she said, reaching out to family and friends who are alone, a phone call, card, text, just letting them know that you are willing to listen helps.
Yeah, that's true. And I'm glad she said that, because that was actually going to be one of my closing things, but I'll go and address it now. I think that that's very key. I think that there's certain things that you should ask, and I'll still kind of wait a little bit before I say them all, but certain things that you should make it a daily habit of doing. Come up with I'll give some suggestions, but come up with your own daily questions that you ask yourself. There should not be a day in normal, when things are so-called normal, that you don't ask yourself these certain questions, and especially in quarantine. So ask yourself, like, what do I want to accomplish today? What am I grateful for? I'm just going to cover some of them. What am I grateful for today? Who can I reach out to every single day? Think of someone you can pray for. Think of someone that might just need to hear your voice. Think of an elderly or senior citizen that may be quarantining alone. Because I look at, like I said, I have two roommates, my mom and my dad right now. And if it was not for them, it's been okay for me. But I was thinking, if I was at home by myself, because I don't have children, I don't have a husband. And so if I was at home quarantined, things would look a lot different for me right now, you know? And so I think about those. So think about the people who are alone. Think about the people who just might, you don't get to talk to often. This may be time for you to just take and like, just, my brother TJ does this. He's been doing it for years and I think it's amazing. And if you know TJ, he's just a people person. But he literally gets his phone sometimes. And I'm sorry if I'm telling you a secret, TJ. He doesn't do it all the time. God really does put people on his heart. But he does this thing, and I just thought it was amazing when he told me this years ago. Sometimes he just takes his phone and does it like that, scrolls and goes through his contacts, and wherever it stops, he calls that person. And every time that he does that, that person's like, man, God really did something today. You know, I really wanted to hear from you. I needed to hear it. And I just thought that was excellent. So if you don't know who to call, do that. If it's somebody you keep thinking about, do that. Just reach out, because even though we're socially distanced, we can still be socially connected. So,
and that's one of the things, you know, you know, this pandemic, as we have stated over the course of this conversation, that it has definitely exposed a lot of things. But one of the things that I have been tremendously amazed and appreciative of is one of my favorite words is grace. I had a wonderful conversation with a professor at Southern University the other morning, and she and I are just beginning to just become good friends. And we were calling, we're connected to talk about business and commission stuff. But before we got there, we just was just what we're talking about. We both needed to just that time just to talk about the quarantine. How's it been going for you? And all of that. And before we got off the phone, she and I just kept going back to the word grace and how much we have seen that again nationally, but even just individually in her circles and in my circles. I mean, everybody from the young kids to, you know, older individuals, you know, from making face masks to, you know, delivering food and I mean, just big and small, everybody is doing those things. And again, it doesn't take much. It's amazing how I think before the pandemic, I think a lot of us thought that it took so much, right? That we had to like really stand still and think, oh, I got to block out all this time, or I got to give all this money, and I got to do all this to help somebody, or to, you know, to go out my way to be kind. And God is showing us, no, it doesn't. It doesn't have to. It's just a phone call. It's just a smile. It's just, you know, going and volunteering to give a box of food on a church parking lot. It's all of these things, and it's just grace in such a beautiful way. So
that's good. That's good. One thing I would say too is I am I love speaking, not speaking. I love listening to speaking. I love listening to preaching. I love listening to all podcasts, all that stuff. And so for me, like, even before this, and this is back when I was in high school, like Bishop Jakes, like I call him Uncle Jakes, but Uncle Jakes, because I feel like him and my daddy could be brothers. I really do. But his sermons always resonate with me, as my dad does, as my brothers, and a lot of other people I listen to. But for me, that's normally like, I go to what I know, the people I know, and listen to their sermons. But for me, during this time, my brother, Jamichael, he came out with this podcast, and yeah, I can say I'm biased. I don't feel like I'm biased, because one thing about my family, we honest with each other. But he has an excellent podcast, and it's called Decoded. So if you have not listened to it, it's on Spotify, iTunes, all that. Go listen to it on Decoded. But he has been really making me dig deep. Now, I'm a life coach, and so a lot of times you feel like you kind of know some of this stuff because you're asking other people and help people work. But sometimes it takes other people helping you work through things. And his podcast has truly been making me ask myself some serious questions. And so one of my biggest lessons I've learned through this pandemic is that your help isn't always on the outside. It's so much help on the inside. And so listen to my brother, he's always been my younger brother. I definitely, he's one of the wisest people I know. But for me to hear him and hear his depth and to hear how the things he's saying, I'm now seeing him as a man. He has 2 children, he has a wife, all that stuff, but it's making me see him in a different way, but that decoded. So go listen to it. But it's really been allowing me to dig deep and realize like your help is closer than you think, you know? And so that's been one of my biggest lessons. We only have a few more minutes, but if you all would share, and I'm sure there are many, and if we have time, we'll still talk about it. But what are some of your biggest lessons? And if you all in the chat, drop some of your biggest lessons in this chat about this whole pandemic and everything we're going through.
Another lesson for me is that even during this quarantine and pandemic, that it's still okay to have boundaries and still okay to say no. And I struggle with that because I'm always, wanting to help and wanting to give so much of myself to anything I do, and to the people in my life and to the community. But with that, you sacrifice a lot, and a lot of that sacrifice is me, and my health and my well-being, both mentally, physically, and spiritually. And so over the course of the years, I've really had to learn how to set boundaries for me so that, it goes from that mentality, you have to put the face mask on before you can save somebody else. You can't pour from an empty cup, that sort of thing. And so it's, learning how to set those boundaries, learning, the good yeses and the good nos and things like that. But even in this quarantine it's that it's still okay, that every Zoom call may not be one I need to get on, which ones do I need to, and prioritizing and that thing. And that was hard because it was like, well, I'm at home. So, I'm in home, I'm relaxed, I can be on all the Zoom calls. No, maybe not. So that was a big lesson that I've learned, that, even during quarantine and this pandemic, that boundaries and my no's still matter.
That's good.
That's good. One of the lessons I think, and it's a lesson, but it's also just kind of reaffirming. And Kathleryn, you talked a little bit about grace. And I think for me, it was compassion, and the fact that compassion really is what we need to give each other. What every person deserves to have is compassion. And I think we're all in this together. Again, the entire world is experiencing what we're experiencing. And people have different emotions that go along with that, depending on their situation. Some people have lost their jobs, as we've mentioned. Some people are alone. Some people are subject to abuse. So people are just on so many different levels. And if we could just show compassion to one another. And it really is okay if you don't have something nice to say, to not say anything at all. Absolutely. Especially for the keyboard warriors who are like behind the keyboard, just passing so much judgment about people and their experiences.
Absolutely.
Compassion, not saying anything. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's good. Even putting negative things on social media, like everything, when you turn on the TV, everything is negative. So everybody doesn't want, and you don't know what situation they're in. So every time, if I'm already on the brink of depression or I'm in depression, and it's just going to take one thing to break the camel's back, like if I get on Facebook and I see your woe is me comment, it's just going to bring me down. So be more mindful of what we're putting on social media. Now, let's be realistic. And there's certain things we need to talk about, like this testing. But we have 3 minutes. So I'm not gonna go into a whole lot of that. However, I cannot get off live without saying this. Get tested. And there are some things in the works which we're trying to bring more testing to our community, because that is definitely not enough testing going on right now. And that's all I'm gonna say about that. However, I have to say this as well. Just because you go get tested and you're negative when you leave does not mean that you can't be infected the same day or the next day. So I think what's happening is some people who are being tested, they're getting tested and thinking they have a clean bill of health, and then they're going out, getting back in large crowds and doing whatever, and you are still susceptible to being infected. So just be mindful. Take precautions. It's just a lot. And honestly, I feel like we need to have a part 2 of this. This is I think this has been a great conversation. I did not get to kind of talk about everything that I kind of had in mind. However, I think that what we talked about was important, and I feel like that's where God led us. And so that means that I feel like it's somebody on this live who needed to hear whatever we discussed today. And so all of the other little thoughts that maybe we had that didn't get addressed, maybe it just wasn't time for that, and we can save that for next time. So maybe, so I see in the comments somebody said yes, so that means they want a part 2. So I think we're going to do a part 2. I have talked to my ladies and see when they can do a part 2. But closing out, I'll say this, my little last closing, and then I'll allow you all to say your last closing. And this has been a lesson as well. Like I said, I'm writing a book, My Life, My Story, Our Lessons. And it's all about our story. And I feel like it's so many parts to my story that were preparing me for this time that I didn't even realize. And actually, that was one of the things I wanted to talk about that we didn't get to. So maybe on part 2, we could talk about that. But my brother, TJ, I'm told you, a lot of my stuff is coming from in-house. My daddy, my brothers, all that. He posted a video of the other week on his page, and it was talking about how would you like to be remembered. And it really made me think about it during this pandemic. Like, if I was to go out and get affected, and I've thought about this many times, but it was like, it was more personal this time. If something happened to me and I only had one day, or I passed on, how would I want people to remember me? And then the other part of that is when I've been getting frustrated about certain things, one thing, and I shared this with my mom, I said, one thing that's helping me kind of calm down when things just take me over is I say to myself, if they were infected or something happened to them tomorrow and I found out they had been infected or something, and how would that change what I'm mad about? Would I even care? Like I told you, I'm quarantining with them, so they've drank my cold water a couple of times or something like that I put in the refrigerator. But is it really like worth it? If something happened to you tomorrow, I'm not going to care about that bottled water. So it's really making me bring things into perspective like that. And so I'll share one more thing at the end after you all share your lesson, because I have something, a free gift for everyone. But go ahead. If you have anything to share in closing as far as your lessons.
Well, I'll just say, Denise said in the chat, God has a way of getting our attention so that we can focus on him. And that's been a really good lesson for me during this time. I often, again, spend a lot of time serving God and serving people, and through God, leading me to do that, but not necessarily a lot of time in one-on-one time with God, communing with God, praying with God, talking to God. And so this has been a time I could slow down and think about what really matters. Like you said, DeJuan, what really is important. And then also how he is speaking to me and how I can stay in relationship with God and build a better relationship with God, at least on my end. So that's been a really eye-opening experience for me during this time, is to slow down and make sure that I am communing with God.
That's good. I think Michael said in the chat earlier too about slowing down, so you're not alone.
Yeah, I think for me, I go back to peace. I think, that was an intention that God placed on my heart at the beginning of this year. And it's really important for me to have that peace throughout this year. And that peace is just to live in the moment, to be present in every situation with every person that I interact with, both through my commission work, through, my church work. And to pause more. And DeJuan, you and I talked about, you asked me, what does that pause look like? And for me is, if I'm stressing, pause. And that's just to you know, whether to do just to pray or to listen to a song. I'm a big believer in affirmations. Matter of fact, I keep a lot of them in my phone. Is going to whatever that is that's going to center me back to, you know, finding that peace and to seek Him. That's been something that I really am holding on to. And like Christin says, you know, we're always on the go and we're always, you know, doing for others. But I have to be reminded is that that's the core of Kathleryn is to everybody knows I'm a champion for change, and I'm a believer that God put me on this earth to be a champion, but I can't be a champion for others if I'm not well. And so I'm really trying to take heed of that, and for me, it's just to stay connected to Him and to find that peace. So that's a big lesson that I'm holding on to.
That's good. Thank you for sharing that. So as we bring this call to a close, once again, I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. I have a gift for you all. So in 2017, and I just kind of updated it, I did a workbook called 51 Self-Reflections. And basically it's a workbook that helps you, it asks you a bunch of questions. And this is an excellent thing to do with people that you're quarantining with. And you'll learn, if you haven't learned anything about them, you'll learn a lot from doing this workbook. But it's 51 questions that you can use for self-reflection and that you can use to get to become more aware of your feelings, your thoughts, your experiences, and your story. And because at the end of the day, when we leave this pandemic, when we are past all of this, and I truly believe that day is coming, but when we get to the point where past this, everyone will have their own story of this time. What will your story be? What will your story be? And if your part of your story is that you have not grown, you have not learned anything, you have not developed a relationship with your family members, your children, and you're not any closer with them or just knowledgeable about them after this is over, then have you really wasted your time, or have you really focused on what's truly important? Take this time to think about what you can do without, what you thought was necessary that really isn't. So I just want to leave you with that. I have a free gift, that workbook. I am putting it